Revealed, my son's cancelled dinner exposed an incredible betrayal, a heartwarming journey to forgiveness. The diner was alive with the hum of conversation, the clatter of plates, and the warm smell of bacon frying, creating a chorus of familiarity that tugged at Sarah's heartstrings. Today was supposed to be a celebration, a joyous dinner to mark her son Lucas's high school graduation, a milestone that felt monumental after years of struggle and sacrifice. Sarah had spent the entire week preparing, decorating with balloons and banners, her heart racing with anticipation. Each detail represented their journey through the ache of a divorce that left her standing alone, yet steadfast, in the face of abandonment, but on a day meant for laughter and pride, everything unraveled in an instant. A figure appeared at the door, the sun casting a shadow that seemed to darken the entire room. It was Lucas's father, Lucas Sr., the man who walked away, leaving behind a world of pain. Her heart dropped, the joyful chatter around her fading into a suffocating silence. Lucas's face reflected her shock, confusion flashing across his features as he instinctively moved closer to her side, their unspoken bond tightening like a lifeline. "Mom?" Lucas's voice broke, a mixture of fear and hope. The diner, once a sanctuary, suddenly felt like a battlefield. As patrons turned their heads, gasps filled the air. Conversations that once celebrated Lucas now shifted to whispers of disbelief. "Can we talk?" Lucas Sr. said, his demeanor calm but distant. Sarah's insides twisted painfully at his casual tone, an emotionless reminder of the love that faded long ago. Flashes of hurt flooded her mind, nights spent crying, sleepless mornings, and the unwavering resilience she held for Lucas. Talk. After all these years? She fought to keep her voice steady, to shield her son from the looming storm. But chaos erupted inside her, shame and anger raged. How could he show up now, on a day meant for joy? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Lucas stood frozen between two worlds, the warmth of his mother's love and the cold, empty promise of a father who had chosen to leave. As commotion buzzed around them, the diner quickly transformed into a sanctuary of support, local patrons rallying around Sarah. They whispered their own stories of heartache and healing, sharing tales that resonated deeply in the air, thick with emotion. Amidst the chaos, Lucas discovered an unexpected yearning. He felt drawn to the kitchen, the solace of cooking guiding him through his confusion. The whir of mixers and the clanking of pots ignited a spark he had yet to acknowledge. An eager community, sensing his need to create, encouraged him to enter a local cooking competition. It was a chance to stand strong, not only to explore his passion but to forge his own identity, apart from the chaos at home. Just as Lucas's confidence began to blossom, a shocking revelation about his father's intentions echoed through the diner. Sarah's hurt intertwined with Lucas's questions, leaving a gaping wound that threatened to unravel everything. As the bacon sizzled and the smell of fresh bread filled the air, Lucas struggled with his decision: stay loyal to a man who walked away, or embrace the power of connection, hope, and a future crafted through hard work and love. The stakes were high, and just as everything began to come together, an unexpected twist loomed that might forever change the course of their lives. The moment stretched out like a taut string, ready to snap. Lucas's heart raced as emotions collided inside him, pressed between his mother's fierce gaze and the empty promises of a father he barely knew anymore. Behind the counter, the clattering plates and sizzling pans faded into a backdrop that felt worlds away. Why now? Lucas's voice wavered, betraying the turmoil within. Why here? He turned to his mother, eyes filled with a mix of frustration and longing. Sarah's grip tightened on his arm, grounding him as best she could amid the chaos surrounding them. Through gritted teeth, she kept her voice low. Stay close to me, okay? We don't have to talk to him. Not today. Her words wrapped around him like a protective blanket, shielding him from the looming specter of regret and resentment that their father represented. But as Lucas glanced at the diner's entrance, he noticed an uninvited crowd forming, curious onlookers whispering stories they would never know, judging them through the haze of their own experiences. He felt exposed. Vulnerable. "I'm going to the kitchen," he said suddenly, his mind made up. A flicker of determination set in. He would not be reduced to this raw pain over his father's reappearance. He'd spent years nurturing a love for cooking, transforming his frustration into something beautiful and meaningful. As he walked away, Sarah's gaze followed him, softening amidst her storm of emotions. She could feel his pulse quickening, the fight in him awakening. But she felt that familiar not returned fear and hope clashing in the backdrop of a world she desperately wanted to shield him from. In the kitchen, Lucas found solace. He took a deep breath, letting the rich aromas envelop him, the smoke from grilling cheese, the buttery scent of sautéed mushrooms. Here, he was in control. With every chop and stir, he poured his confusion into the dishes. His heart burned with every slice, every sizzle. As he worked, a sense of clarity washed over him. The competition was not just about the food, it was about proving to himself that he could rise above the turmoil, that he could create his own legacy separate from his father's shadow. The thought felt liberating, like the first breath of fresh air after a storm. Back in the diner, Lucas Sr. watched from a distance, his presence stirring a sense of turmoil among the patrons who had come to support Sarah and celebrate her son. Murmurs passed through the crowd, their eyes darting between him and the kitchen doorway as if trying to decipher the unfolding drama. "Do you think he'll let you in?" someone whispered. "He's probably angry, right?" But Sarah stood tall, grounding herself in her son's strength. "No matter what he says, Lucas has grown," she thought. "He's not that scared little boy anymore." As Lucas plated his first dish for a trial run, the vibrant colors danced before him. He took one last look at the waffles, the perfectly cooked eggs, and the fresh herbs sprinkled like a promise over the meal. This was his moment, a chance to be celebrated, appreciated, not for being a product of a broken family, but as a passionate, ambitious young man. Suddenly, the door swung open, its hinges creaking as Lucas Sr. stepped inside, determined to reach the kitchen. Lucas's heart skipped a beat. It was time to face the legacy he never asked for. Would he stand firm in his new resolve, in this moment that could change everything? Beneath the swirl of emotions, anticipation, fear, and resolve, one lingering question echoed through the air. Could forgiveness pave the way to a fresh beginning, or was he destined to repeat the cycle of hurt? Lucas could feel his heart pounding against his ribs as his father approached. The kitchen, usually so welcoming and vibrant, felt like a tight box closing in on him. A cacophony of sizzles and aromas faded into silence, every sound punctuated by the heavy weight of Lucas Sr.'s presence. He glanced at the dish in front of him, a vibrant splash of colors now overshadowed by the man who had always been a ghost in his life. "Lucas," his father's voice cut through the air, deep and cautious. "Can we talk?" There it was, the uncertainty wrapped in a demand. Lucas clenched his fists, his knuckles whitening. This was the moment he'd dreamed of, the confrontation he'd rehearsed in his mind. But now that it was happening, a wave of doubt cascaded over him. "Why?" he replied, forcing the word out between clenched teeth. It felt like treason, daring to demand a reason from a man who had walked away so easily before. "Because I owe you that much," Lucas Sr. said, stepping closer. The smell of cigarettes clung to him, mingling with the lingering scent of his past. "I could have done better." Lucas found himself shrouded in a mixture of anger and the tiny sliver of hope that perhaps his father was genuine. He swallowed hard. "Did you only come back to talk? What do you really want?" "I want to make things right," Lucas Sr. insisted, each word dropping like heavy stones. But Lucas didn't move. He felt rooted to the ground, which both terrified and empowered him. Here he was, young but resolute, a chef who had molded his pain into something beautiful. Behind him, Sarah watched with bated breath, stationed at the kitchen door. Her heart ached for her son, wishing she could step in and shield him from any further hurt. Yet, she also recognized this was a pivotal moment for Lucas. He had to confront his father, no matter how agonizing it might be. Taking a deep breath, Lucas lifted his chin defiantly. "You don't get to choose when you show up in my life and think that words alone can fix everything. What do you expect me to do with your apology? Lucas Sr. flinched at the bite in his tone, but steadied himself. I understand, he began, yet the words felt hollow, like a parched earth waiting for rain. Please, just give me a chance. Can we start over? Start over? Lucas scoffed, the anger igniting inside him like a flame fanned by wind. You think we can just pretend everything's fine? You don't get that luxury. For a moment, silence hung heavily between them, thick with unspoken truths. Lucas looked past his father, focusing on the colorful ingredients laid out on the counter, memories of each dish he perfected bringing solace. He thought of the love and dedication he poured into every meal, a stark contrast to the neglect he felt as a child. Then, a flash of clarity struck him. If you really mean it, if you want to make things right, you have to prove it. Not with words, but with actions. A plan formed in his mind, daring and unexpected. Prove it? Lucas Sr. asked, eyebrows knitting together in confusion. Yeah. Help me in the kitchen. I need another set of hands, Lucas replied, determination flooding his voice. Show me you want to be here, not just for yourself but for me. As his father nodded slowly, a shivering wave of uncertainty shot through Lucas. Could he truly open that door? A new day was dawning, but shadows remained. The path ahead was uncharted but necessary, and with every step they took together, maybe just maybe he was about to discover the kind of forgiveness that could rewrite their story. But as they began to chop and mix side by side, an unsettling thought lingered at the back of Lucas's mind. Was he making a mistake by letting his father back in, or was this the first step towards healing he never knew he needed? Lucas stood at the counter, the slicing of vegetables sharp and rhythmic, the noise filling the spaces that had once felt oppressive. He caught glimpses of his father working methodically beside him, unsure but trying. The tension hung between them like steam rising from a pot thick and waiting to burst free. I never thought I'd see you in my kitchen, Lucas said, trying to lighten the air. The words came out colder than he meant. He could feel his father flinch, and for an instant, it struck him just how vulnerable they both were. Yeah, well, I'm trying to be here, Lucas Sr. stumbled over his words while chopping onions. The sharp scent filled the kitchen, mingling with the spices Lucas had chosen for their dish. You've grown up so fast, Lucas. I wish I could have been there with you. Wishing doesn't change anything, Lucas replied bluntly, regretting at the moment it escaped his lips. He watched as his father's expression fell, the flicker of regret in his eyes a mirror of what lay within Lucas's own heart. The stirring pots blurred their faces into shadows, but at that moment, they felt more real than ever. Fair enough, Lucas Sr. said softly, letting the silence stretch. The hum of the refrigerator and the bubbling of the pot filled the void, yet it wasn't enough to chase away the weight of their shared past. They moved through the motions of cooking, measuring spices, folding dough, and as they worked, Lucas felt a small part of himself soften. Cooking had always been a way for him to express his spirit, a language without words, and maybe, just maybe, it could be a bridge between him and his father. Tell me about your favorites, what you remember eating as a kid, Lucas ventured, his voice quieter now. His father paused, an unexpected smile tugging at his lips. Your grandmother's chicken soup. Best thing in the world. She always claimed it was a cure-all. I remember the smell, Lucas nodded. A whole weekend spent with her in the kitchen, the broth simmering. I think I was about 6 when I tried to make it myself, Lucas chuckled, recalling that messy disaster with the entire kitchen floor flooded with chicken broth. A genuine laugh escaped Lucas Sr., a sound Lucas had not heard from him in years. You know, I was a terrible cook back then too. She must have had the patience of a saint. Lucas felt a flicker of connection, a genuine moment stripped of past pain. Perhaps they could scrape the surface and carve something anew, but could it last? This kitchen was therapy, a sanctuary where he could wipe the slate clean. Minutes turned to hours as they prepared the meal together. Lucas taught his father how to sear the meat just right, while Lucas Sr. struggled with the timing of each dish, but he didn't give up. They moved closer, the walls slowly dissolving. Just as Lucas began to feel hopeful, the door swung open, and Sarah rushed in, eyes wide with concern. I heard shouting, she said, breathless. Nothing happened, Lucas quickly reassured her, glancing nervously at his father. We made progress. But Sarah's expression darkened. Are you sure? Something just feels off. The words settled uncomfortably in the room, puncturing their moment of healing. Lucas's stomach twisted, instinctively recalling the shadows lurking just outside the kitchen. Was this all just a temporary illusion? I'll go check, Sarah said hesitantly. As she left, Lucas turned back to his father. The weight of uncertainty pressed against him again. They had cracked the surface, but could they go deeper? Would they be able to brave the undercurrents lying beneath? I think we've got a good start here, Lucas said, forcing a smile. But doubt gnawed at him, brushing against the edges of his resolve. What had he opened up within himself? And if it led to more pain, was he brave enough to handle it? As they resumed cooking, a new challenge loomed ahead. The meal may have been almost done, but so many deeper questions still needed answers. Would their fragile reconciliation stand the test of real life when the pots cooled and the simple act of chopping vegetables? Wouldn't he mask the truths buried deep within? The kitchen felt different now. The air, once tense and stifling, carried a hint of hope, but uncertainty still lingered, stubborn as the lingering onion smell. As they worked, Lucas cautiously presented a new topic. What else did you enjoy? I want to know you, beyond everything. His voice was softer now, inviting. Lucas Sr. wiped his brow and nodded, tapping the knife against the cutting board. Your mom's lasagna was a big one. She made it every Sunday. It was like magic. Magic? Lucas raised an eyebrow, a small smile creeping onto his face. You sure it wasn't fire? No. Lucas Sr. laughed, the sound infectious. I swear, I thought we'd burned it more than once. But there was always this way she made it taste just right, every time. Lucas felt warmth creep into his chest. That must have been something special. He gazed down at the sizzling pan, amazed they could share memories again. Was this the start, a way to realize what they lost? Yeah, his father said, the laughter fading slightly as something strange and nostalgic flickered in his eyes. We were a family back then. The mention of family struck a chord. Lucas had always craved that feeling, a warmth that seemed to slip through his fingers. We still are, in a way, he said, the truth of it almost frightening. Before they could explore that thought further, the door swung open again. Sarah returned, a serious expression etched on her face. Her eyes darted between the two men. I heard something outside. What do you mean? Lucas felt a knot form. Like yelling? It seemed to be coming from the street, she warned, looking pale. Lucas's heart raced. Had the past stormed back into their lives without warning? He exchanged a look with his father, a wordless communication of fear and doubt. Did you see who it was? Lucas asked cautiously. No, but it didn't sound good, Sarah shook her head. Maybe we should check. Wait. No, let us finish cooking, Lucas Sr. interjected, suddenly animated. He seemed desperate to hold on to this moment, the fragile progress they had made. We're close to being done here. But what if no? Lucas interrupted, feeling something build inside him. We can't let fear take over again. Not now. Sarah hesitated, her concern morphing into an expression of understanding. Okay. Let us finish this first. They returned to the pots, the sounds of chopping and sizzling taking over once more, but with an undercurrent of tension. Lucas stirred the sauce, feeling the heat rising not just from the stove, but from the uncertainty pushing them closer to the surface. Every movement felt amplified, the clang of the pan, the bubbling of the pasta. It was a dance. A ritual. But behind that dance, shadows crept back into view, as the echo of that yelling outside lingered like an unwanted guest. When the food was finally plated, they gathered at the table, the chaos of cooking giving way to an oddly serene scene. But that tranquility felt precarious. Lucas glanced at the door, half expecting a knock that would shatter the moment. What do we do now? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Now, we eat, Lucas Sr. said firmly, though his shaky hand suggested otherwise. As they lifted their forks, uncertainty loomed heavy in the room. They all knew this fragile piece could crack at any moment, but maybe, just maybe, they had enough faith left to hold it together. But as they took the first tentative bites, the distant sounds outside suddenly crescendoed into full chaos: a siren wailing, a voice shouting, and then, glass shattering. All three froze mid-bite, hearts racing. They exchanged glances, fear creeping back into those familiar spaces. "Is it safe?" Lucas whispered, pulse quickening as reality jolted back with a force they couldn't ignore. And somewhere deep in his gut, he felt the growing question that threatened to unravel everything. Were they ready to face the truth lurking just outside? The moment hung in the air, filled with a tension that felt almost suffocating. Lucas's fork trembled slightly above his plate as the chaotic noises from outside scraped against the fragile piece they had momentarily constructed. He could feel his heart hammering in his chest, drumming out a frantic rhythm that drowned out the simmering sauce and the half-eaten lasagna before him. He needed to know, was it safe to stay? "Let us go check," Lucas Sr. finally said, surprising both Sarah and Lucas. Panic mixed with the stubborn resolve in his father's eyes. "We can't just sit here." Maybe it's nothing," Sarah suggested, her voice wavering. She looked around the room, as if trying to ground herself in their shared space. "What if we just know?" Lucas cut her off, the urgency in his tone rising. "What if it's something big? We owe it to ourselves, to figure this out." The three of them exchanged determined glances, a silent agreement forming as they set their forks down. There was a shared understanding now, a hunger for truth stronger than the need for food. Together, they rose from the table, the weight of their chairs scraping against the floor echoed with finality. As they approached the door, Lucas felt the chill of anxiety snake up his spine. He hesitated for a moment, hands hovering over the doorknob. "What if we find something we can't handle?" He blurted out, his voice thick with fear. His father placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "We've faced darkness before, son. We can do it again." Lucas Sr. seemed to channel a kernel of strength that spurred them forward. With a deep inhale, Lucas turned the knob, and they stepped outside. The street felt foreign, drenched in insecurity. The sounds were louder now, yelling and chaos danced viciously around them. Lucas spotted a group of people huddled in the distance, voices overlapping, but he couldn't make out the words. He felt his heartbeat quickening as they moved closer, instinctively clutching at his father's shirt, a child once more overwhelmed by bigger forces. "What is going on?" Lucas Sr. shouted, trying to push his way through the crowd. No one seemed to heed him, too caught up in their own mixture of fear and confusion. Lucas moved closely, anxiety clawing at him. Then, he saw a shattered storefront of the old pharmacy across the street. Glass crunched beneath their feet, blanketing the ground like fallen stars. Panic flared. "Is anyone hurt?" Lucas yelled again, taking a step forward. A figure emerged from the crowd, a woman with wild eyes and shaky hands. "It's just a protest. Just a protest," she cried, her voice breaking. But some people got carried away. Relief poured over Lucas, but the undercurrent of tension remained. "A protest?" he echoed, trying to wrap his head around it. "What are they protesting about?" Before the woman could answer, a familiar face broke through the crowd. A neighbor, Tom, eyes wide and frantic. "Lucas, you need to go back inside. They're saying it's getting out of hand." Panic pushed Lucas's mind into overdrive. "We can't just ignore this. What if it escalates? We need to know more." The crowd grew restless as sirens wailed closer, their red flashes illuminating the night. Anxiety wrapped around them, tightening like a vice, as if the truth were lurking just beyond reach, waiting to be uncovered. But what truth? And at what cost? The light flickered wildly in the chaos, and Lucas felt a chill settle over him. What if the evidence of their past, the old hurt, the unresolved questions was out there, beyond that wave of shouting? Lucas glanced back at his father and Sarah. Something was shifting, rippling below the surface. They had just begun to heal, yet now, the weight of the unknown loomed large. Should we stay or go back inside? Sarah's voice broke through, trembling like the leaves on the trees. Lucas looked back at the flickering streetlights and the shifting crowd. Fear settled in his chest, but there was something else too: curiosity, a need to confront the truth lurking just outside their door. "Let us wait," Lucas whispered, heart pounding as the sirens drew nearer, bringing with them the promise of change. But was the truth they were about to confront one they were ready for? As they stood there, still and silent, the answers lined up like a ticking clock, waiting for the moment to unravel everything. The air hung thick with uncertainty as the crowd surged around them. Each shout blended into a desperate symphony that echoed against the buildings. Lucas's heart raced, pounding against his ribs like a drum eager to break free. What if they turned violent? Sarah murmured, her grip on Lucas tightening. "Just stay close," Lucas Sr. replied, scanning the faces around them, searching for signs of reason amidst rising chaos. He tried to project calm, but Lucas couldn't help but notice the flicker of unease in his father's eyes. The police sirens wailed louder now, slicing through the tension like a knife. Lights flashed, casting eerie shadows on the street and illuminating the anxious faces of the crowd. Lucas felt the pull of fear and curiosity battling inside him. Was this really just a protest, or something much worse? Suddenly, a shout burst from the front lines. A tall man, stylishly dressed but wild-eyed, stood atop a car, rallying others with fervor. "We have to make our voices heard. They can't silence us." Lucas squinted, trying to catch every word. The man spoke of injustice, of lives disrupted, his passion igniting a fire that crackled through the crowd. Some cheered, while others looked on warily, torn between agreement and fear. Beside Lucas, Sarah whispered, "Do we really know what they're fighting for?" Before Lucas could answer, a woman stepped forward, clutching a worn-out sign with red lettering barely visible in the dark. "They took everything from us. Jobs, homes, the very essence of who we are." Her voice was shaky but loud enough to resonate, feelings pouring out like an open wound. Lucas's stomach twisted. He couldn't help but see the parallels to his own family's struggles. Had they been so preoccupied with their own pain that they overlooked the larger suffering outside? "Lucas, we should go back," Sarah urged, her voice trembling. "No." The word burst from him, raw and desperate. "What if someone out there needs help? What if we're meant to be here?" A silence fell over Sarah. He felt her confusion, her fear. "Listen," he continued, lowering his voice. "We can't just turn our backs on this. These people are fighting for something bigger than themselves. Can't you feel it?" But before she could respond, Lucas Sr. stepped in, a frown deepening on his face. "I don't want you two caught up in the heat of it all. We need to decide, do we help, or do we protect ourselves?" The words hung there, heavy and thick. Protecting themselves meant retreating to safety, but at what cost? Would they be running away from more than just chaos, away from confronting their own truths? Before they could wrestle with the decision, the crowd surged forward, swept by a wave of emotions stronger than fear. It was instinctive. Lucas felt it pulling them closer, like moths to a flame, and then, a sudden shift. A loud crash echoed through the night, another window shattered. The crowd gasped, a collective intake of breath. People around them started to scatter, hearts racing, urgency shifting into a frenzy. "Stay together," Lucas Sr. shouted, pulling Sarah and Lucas closer as the chaos spilled onto the street. Lucas's mind raced. Their past, their struggles, surged to the surface as they were faced with the primal choice between safety and heritage. The moment felt like a threshold between two worlds, one of security, and the other of upheaval. They stood at the edge, breath held, as the question loomed: were they ready to step into the chaos, or retreat back to the comfort of silence? In that fateful instant, choices danced in the chaos, lines between safety and recklessness blurred, and Lucas whispered, more to himself than anyone else, "We can't run anymore." What awaited them in the heart of the storm? Would they discover truth or doom themselves further into pain? Lucas's breath quickened as the chaos unfolded around him. People surged ahead, swept by emotion and desperation. It felt like a tidal wave crashing against the shore, a force that could either drown him or carry him to safety. He squeezed Sarah's hand tighter, The warmth of her palm was a grounding force amidst the maelstrom. "Lucas, it's getting dangerous," Sarah exclaimed, her voice barely above the clamor. But his determination hardened. He couldn't walk away now, not when he felt the weight of the world pressing on him. "Just a little longer," he said, his voice shaky but firm. As if on cue, the crowd erupted again, shouting as one voice, unified in their resentment. The man on the car was still rallying, arms outstretched, igniting flames of passion in people's hearts. "Together, we are powerful. They can't break us if we stand united." The call echoed in Lucas's ears, resonating deep within him. For a moment, the urgency faded. Lucas caught a glimpse of a woman in the front row, tears streaming down her face, holding onto a child who peered out with wide, frightened eyes. A pang hit his chest. Was this what they wanted? Was the chaos here a reflection of everything they faced in their own lives? He remembered the look in his mother's eyes when she lost her job, the deep lines of worry etched into her forehead. He glanced at his father, stoic and tense, yet fierce. "Dad, look at those people," Lucas urged, pointing. "They're struggling just like us. Don't you see? We have to help." Lucas Sr. hesitated, torn. His gaze roamed across the sea of faces, and for a heartbeat, Lucas saw a flicker of understanding pass through him. But then it melted away. "We don't belong in the middle of this," he finally said, his voice low and resolute. Suddenly, the sound of sirens pierced through the air again, louder this time. A group of officers emerged from the shadows, batons drawn, faces unreadable beneath their helmets. The crowd thinned around them like grass underfoot. People faced a choice: stand and fight, or flee in the face of authority. "Get back!" shouted one officer, but the words were drowned out by the screams and shouts. Lucas felt a knot form in his stomach. "Stay behind me," Lucas Sr. commanded, moving to shield Sarah and Lucas. But Lucas couldn't stand behind anymore. He took a step forward, the realization blazing like a brand igniting his spirit. "No!" he shouted, his voice cutting through the clamor. "Stop. This isn't what we want. We want to be heard." The tension reached a tipping point. Eyes turned towards him, and for a brief moment, the chaos receded. The crowd felt the weight of his words. Hadn't they all been yearning to scream their truth? "What were you doing?" asked Sarah, panic creeping into her voice, but Lucas couldn't pull back. He stood taller, conviction coursing through his veins. "I'm not letting them silence us," he shouted. As the thrill of courage surged, he felt a connection with the thousands around him. They were not just voices. They were a single entity, struggling but alive, ready to fight for more than safety. The officers halted their advance, caught off guard by Lucas's boldness. A ripple of uncertainty passed through the gathered crowd, and he knew this was the moment. Was he ready to step into the eye of the storm and face whatever came next? The question pounded in his head. Was it time to embrace their collective pain and hope for something greater? "What is going to happen now?" Sarah whispered, her eyes wide with fear and admiration. At that moment, Lucas didn't have an answer, but it didn't matter. They had taken a step forward, and now it was just a matter of standing tall amidst the shadows. As the tension hung thick in the air, the first tear fell from the sky. Would this spark a fire of change or fizzle into nothing? The answer lay just beyond their reach, in the heart of the storm that awaited them. The crowd shifted, a collective breath as uncertainty hung in the air. Lucas felt the electric buzz of the moment, the tension vibrating through him. People, poised on the edge of something greater, looked to him, a mix of fear and hope swirling in their eyes. Just then, a voice broke through, deep and resonant. "Who is this kid?" It was an older man, his face weathered but fierce. With every word, he seemed to challenge the authority standing before them. "You, boy, you have guts to stand up in the face of fear." Lucas's heart raced. There was something about that recognition that fueled him. "I'm not just a kid. I'm one of you." He felt the fire rise in his chest. We can't let them drown us with silence. A wave of murmurs rolled through the crowd, gaining momentum. Lucas Sr.'s grip on his son tightened, unsure whether to pull him back or to let his son speak. Sarah let go of Lucas's hand, inching closer to him, mirroring the determination that shone in his eyes. "Speak!" shouted a voice from the back, breaking the tension like a joint cracking. Lucas glanced behind him, seeing a fiery spirit reflected in the eyes of strangers who'd been lost in their own battles. "Speak for us!" Another shouted, and the words ricocheted around, igniting a chorus of agreement. Encouraged, Lucas pressed on. "We're all tired of being ignored, tired of feeling like our voices don't matter. Look around you. We're not alone in this fight." As the sirens ebbed in the distance, the officers remained unsure. The man on the car had ceased his speech, observing Lucas with a nod of approval, perhaps seeing in him what he had sparked within the crowd before. "Maybe it's time we put down our fears," Lucas continued, his voice steady now, a rhythm building, "and pick up our truths. Let us raise our voices for everyone who feels unheard." The crowd erupted in a roar, hands raised, fists pumped, as if they found the rhythm in their collective defiance. In that moment, Lucas felt buoyed, as if the crowd was a rising tide that would lift him, not drown him. But then, in a blink, chaos surged again. A clash erupted between the officers and the crowd, batons swung, shouts escalated. Lucas's heart plummeted. Was this moment of unity dissolving into turmoil? The officers had divided the crowd, pushing some back as others surged forward. "Run!" shouted Sarah, fear gripping her voice, but Lucas planted his feet. "No! Stay!" he shouted back. Lucas turned, catching sight of the woman from earlier, still holding the child, her face a mask of fear and confusion. She needed support. They all did, even if it put them at risk. "Help me!" he called, rallying those nearby. "Stand with me!" The officers advanced, and the atmosphere thickened with urgency. Lucas watched, breathless, as the crowd responded to him, slowly moving towards the line of officers. He hoped clung to the idea that this wasn't the end but rather a beginning. His father finally stepped forward, placing a firm hand on Lucas's shoulder. "We have to protect each other, son. Today isn't just about our voices, it's about keeping everyone safe." But Lucas hesitated, feeling torn. Did safety mean silence? The next moments blurred into a whirlwind of noise and raw emotion. The crowd pressed forward, and Lucas felt the tide pulling him. This was about something deeper than protest. It was about unity, about the humanity they all shared. Are we really ready to face what's coming? He wondered as fear intertwined with courage. In that moment, he realized their fight had only begun. But just then, something unexpected happened. A figure emerged from the police line, swaggering and confident. A familiar face that sent a chill down Lucas's spine. Why were they here? What did they want? Could this be the turning point they needed, or the spark that would ignite a deeper conflict? The shadows were growing darker, and Lucas was about to discover just how far they were willing to go to shout their truth into the void. The chaos swirled around them, a tempest of emotions and intentions crashing like waves against a rocky shore. Lucas felt the weight of uncertainty thrum in his veins, every heartbeat a reminder of the moment he'd chosen to stand firm right in the middle of the storm. "Dad! We can't let them intimidate us. This is our moment." Lucas shouted, a fire igniting in his chest as he looked up into his father's eyes. He wanted to believe that they could turn this misunderstanding into something meaningful, something that transcended their personal turmoil. Lucas Sr. hesitated, grappling with fear and something new pride. In that moment, his son was no longer the scared boy desperately searching for approval. Lucas was a young man, resolute and determined to lead. They all had lived through storms before. This time, they were together, gathering strength. Lucas Sr. nodded. "All right. Let us show them we won't be silenced." With that, he stepped forward, standing beside his son, a wall of support. Sarah caught her breath, her heart swelling with a mix of fear and admiration. "Be careful," she whispered, but the tenderness in her voice was laced with confidence. Here they were, three souls bound together by shared battles, ready to find a way forward, not just in their own lives, but in the lives of many. As Lucas looked into the eyes of those surrounding him, he could feel the pulse of their collective struggle. He stepped forward, ready to speak again, bearing raw emotion. "We are here. We are tired of being ignored." The words clawed their way out of him, fueled by years of pain, frustration, and the hope for change. He mirrored the faces of mothers, fathers, children, everyone intertwined by a demand for acknowledgement. Those words hung in the air, lighting up the darkness. A sudden hush fell over the crowd. Then, like thunder, they echoed back, "We are here." From the turmoil, they rose as one, encouraged by Lucas's passion. He saw those who had once felt isolated, now standing strong in unity. It was a moment of realization their struggles weren't just theirs alone, they were a shared burden, a catalyst for change. They walked step by step together, invigorated by newfound strength, but the officers, wary, began to shift. Tension crackled like electricity, a fragile line drawn between chaos and hope. Lucas's heart pounded. Would they receive understanding or backlash? The ground felt an inch away from trembling beneath him. Suddenly, he noticed the FBI badge glimmering in the light. It was his former teacher, Mr. Thompson, who had inspired so many. "Lucas!" He called out from the rear, waving his arms, urgency lining his voice. "Get back. This could escalate." "No." Lucas shouted back, heart racing. "Listen to us, it's time for change." The crowd, fueled by his words, surged forward with newfound energy, knitting a colorful tapestry of humanity's desire for justice and recognition. They weren't fighting just for themselves. They were raising voices for every ignored soul around them, and just when it seemed like the tension might erupt, a single voice broke through, the woman from earlier with the child. "We just want to be heard," she cried, her voice cracking. "For our children. For our future." Suddenly, Lucas remembered a lesson from his past, a moment of clarity that bound them all together. He extended his hand, reaching out toward the woman. "Together, we can make our voices heard. We stand united for tomorrow." His heart raced as he offered hope, reminding them that their cries mattered. The air grew thick with bravery and the spirit of alteration. Somewhere back in that crowd, Lucas Sr. felt Lucas draw strength from that shared support. This process could be transformative, and he understood for the first time in a long while the enormity of second chances. These people, standing before him, were family in their own right, and then, as if responding to the very energy of their unified will, the lines began to shift. Officers lowered their batons, eyes softening at the sincerity unraveling before them. "Let us not escalate this," one officer shouted, surprising everyone. Gathering momentum, Lucas pressed on. "We can dialogue. Let us come together, stop the hate. We won't back down until our voices are acknowledged and respected." One by one, people began to unify under his call, solidifying the stand they had taken. Lucas caught his father's eyes gleaming with pride and admiration. It wasn't about safety anymore, but about connection. The people around them began to join forces, creating a movement in that moment, fueled by the electricity of authenticity and shared scars. A palpable shift occurred as a sea of passionate voices joined Lucas's. Words exploded, laughter echoed, and hope spread like wildfire. Further, their cries for justice became harmonized, a song of resilience rising against the despair of the past, mirrored by love and determination. "Together. Together." Echoed in unison, reverberating off the walls of buildings, cutting through the night. Amid the chaos, Lucas felt something stirring within, an acceptance of all that had happened, but a fierce resolve to redefine what was ahead. This wasn't merely a protest. It was a collective awakening, a band of warriors embracing healing through love, sharing burdens and affirming unity. As the noise around them transformed, their hearts began to settle. Lucas turned to Sarah and Lucas Sr. while the echoes of hope cascaded down like rain, washing away the sorrows of yesterday. This was the beginning of their story. A journey toward forgiveness, strength, and a chance to claim their narrative together, not just as family but as a community. The gates of transformation swung wide, and the light? It shone brighter than ever through the storm. As they raised their voices to the sky, Lucas made a vow, deep in his heart. They would not only embrace change but also nurture the roots of a future filled with love, understanding, and togetherness. Unity sparked a wildfire. They were no longer alone. This was just the start. What followed remained unwritten, but Lucas was sure of one thing: they would not let fear rule their lives anymore. As they stepped out into the dawn of a new day, hand in hand, he knew that hope awaited just beyond the horizon. This is the moment, don't let it pass. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss our next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support is crucial. Comment below with your feelings about this ending and what you think about their journey. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Show them the power of unity and hope. You need to support the channel now. True fans understand the importance of these actions.